when they pull my body from this chair, the headline is going to read, Troy Anthony Davis died hungry. A last meal is not for me, but you are here for me, and I'm here for you. You see, there are a lot of people who think that I killed that cop. Ever since then, I have sat in one chair or another, watching myself, outside myself, watching the system work its wheels. Now, how well do you think the system works? It really depends on which chair you sit in. Now, the whole thing, it began with this chair at Burger King. That's where an off-duty cop named Mark McPhail was working. When Sylvester Red Coles, he just started bugging out over a beer from a homeless guy. Now, I should have left right there and then, but I ran with Coles, and when Officer McPhail tried to help that homeless guy, I ran all the way to Atlanta. Officer McPhail was shot dead. While I'm in Atlanta, Red comes back. He meets with the district attorney, and he blames me. He sat right here in this chair, and he blames me. Even though he had been seen carrying a .38 revolver, the same one that shot Officer McPhail. And even though he had been seen showing that gun around earlier at a party. So I'm arrested and I'm put on trial. You ever seen that movie, Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil? It was the same courthouse, same bench, same chairs. In my trial, they put 9 witnesses in the witness chair to testify against me. Now, you would think that would be a slam dunk, and you would be right. On August 21st, 1991, I was convicted and sentenced to death. But there's just one problem. Of those 9 witnesses, 7 recanted and swore that the police coerced them. They threatened to send a 16-year-old kid to jail for life if he didn't finger me. They threatened to send another woman back to jail if she didn't testify their way. And once she was free, she swore I was not the shooter. And the police have not denied doing this. In fact, 3 witnesses have sworn statements that Red told them that he did it. Now, the men who prosecuted me, they told an appeals court that the new evidence didn't matter, that it was too late to present it, that whether I was innocent or not, I received a fair trial. Now, you know, under Herrera versus Collins, technically, they're right. Now, Justice Rehnquist, he sat in his justice chair and he proclaimed as much. He said actual innocence claims would clog up the courts and that new evidence did not provide a legitimate reason to give someone a new trial. Now, if you look at the Rehnquist court, Justice O'Connor's chair is just right of Rehnquist. And so it was with this decision too. She wrote that the issue before us is, as the court notes, whether a fairly convicted and therefore legally guilty person is constitutionally entitled to yet another judicial proceeding in which to adjudicate his guilt anew, 10 years after conviction, notwithstanding his failure to demonstrate that constitutional error infected his trial. Let me make this very clear. What Justice O'Connor is saying is, as long as you can argue that the trial was fair, whether you actually did it or not, doesn't matter one bit. Red never recanted his testimony, and neither did Steve Sanders. Now, Steve Sanders is the one who identified me in court, but the day after McPhail's murder, he said he would not be able to identify the shooter. They have come within 16 hours of strapping me into Old Sparky here on 2 occasions. Now, the first one was July 16, 2007, when at the last minute, the Georgia Board of Pardons and Paroles delayed my execution by 90 days. Now, the second time, I was less than 2 hours from dying. You see, September 27, 2008, the United States Supreme Court was going to consider whether my 8th Amendment rights had been violated. So, the state attorney and the warden, they decided to kill me September 23rd instead. A Supreme Court server had to force their way in to tell them that the United States Supreme Court issued a stay of my execution. Now, in that particular case, the United States Supreme Court, they decided against me. But nothing gets the justices up out of their seats faster than when people try to usurp their authority. So my execution date was then set for October 28th. In the meantime, the European Parliament, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, former President Jimmy Carter, they all said that executing me without at least looking at the new evidence would be a sin against humanity. Former FBI Director William Sessions, he wrote that there is no more serious violent crime than the murder of an off-duty police officer who puts his life on the line to protect innocent bystanders. That being said, we must be convinced that the right person has been convicted. Serious questions have been raised about Davis's guilt. It would be intolerable to execute an innocent man. Now, Director Sessions, he likes the death penalty. But, you know, the FBI, they like to get the right man. So the Court of Appeals, sitting here in Atlanta, again denied my petition, citing procedural grounds. They said that their discretion was curtailed by federal law. So finally, last year, the Roberts Court, with both Rehnquist and O'Connor retired, sat at the bench and issued the kind of ruling that they haven't made in 50 years. They charged the federal district courts to receive testimony and make findings of fact as to whether evidence that could not have been obtained at time of trial clearly establishes innocence. So, did I do it? I have constantly maintained my innocence. The prosecutors have maintained that they have done nothing wrong and that the police have done nothing wrong and that I am guilty. From where Officer McPhail's family sits, they're upset. They said that the past 2 years have been countless appeals and that it just seems to keep getting drug out. Well, what seems to keep getting drug out to them is fighting for my life for me. And I'm not the only one. See, there's substantial evidence that Texas has executed 2 innocent people in 5 years. The Georgia Board of Pardons and Parole, they issued a formal apology to the family of Lena Baker. Now, she was executed because she was a black woman who killed a white man while defending herself. Now, everyone sees the world from where they sit. I mean, do you believe that the death penalty is a good thing? And even if you do, are you willing to see innocent people put to death? Well, the truth, it depends on where you sit. Think about it. Where do you sit?